real estate or in any business, your number one job is lead gen. Of course, in real estate, you have to serve people too. You have to maintain files, maintain listings, make sure that buyers are happy, make sure things close on time. But ultimately, you don't have any of that unless you're out there talking to people, talking to new people, building relationships. And where we're going today, I'm basically going to be teaching agents. By teaching agents, hopefully it helps them. Obviously, it adds value for the day, but also they're going to remember, oh yeah, Wilson said he works in this area. I might have a client moving there, or I have a client moving from there. I might have a referral for Wilson, and it's a win-win. So I might get a referral from an agent that we helped today. And the reason why they might remember us is because we're planning on giving them value today. So a little bit about me is that this is going to be my 9th year. I started when I was 23, and I couldn't lean on my friends and family. No one really trusted a 23-year-old that's fresh out of college to help them with one of the biggest assets that they would potentially buy or sell. So I had to, and still to this day, majority of our business is cold business. It's business that I've gotten from either our farm, online, from our presence, or open house is one of our big avenues. And slowly but surely our referral and repeat clients are increasing, but I've never leaned heavily on it because I couldn't. So how many people in this room are from the city? And how many people are from somewhere else? I'm assuming everyone else. So about half and half. So I'm technically not from the area that I have market share in. I didn't go to school there. I never lived there. I still don't live there. And I picked it as my team member does though, and James clearly does, but I picked it because it was a business decision, because I saw that there was the competition was not as steep. Now I get it, in the city it's a little different. Pretty much every district probably has that 1 or 2 or 3 people that do heavy market share. So the question is, if I don't have a choice, or if we don't have a choice, how can I strategize to make sure that I could win market share so that we could get to a point where we can slowly build some momentum to differentiate ourselves from that top person that already has it, if that makes sense. So, but there's a lot that we could talk about. Maybe if you have a question, let us know. We can get 3 questions, and that way I kind of get a feel for what we want to discuss today, and I can cover it as much as I can. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Tyler Mendy. I'm with Compass. I'm 5-ish years into the business. I'm curious what you have explored for passive lead generation.
Passive.
And what you have success with and what you haven't.
Maybe you can give me some clarification. Identify a passive way.
Some sort of direct mail campaign, maybe farming. I know that I think on the advertisement was door knocking. So that's not very passive. And so I know that a lot of agents are always looking for that, something that they can set it and forget it and get passive lead gen. And
all right.
I haven't heard too many people with a ton of success with that, because that seems, we'd all be doing it if it kind of existed. So I'm curious if you've had any success with that, or what.
Absolutely. I'm gonna take note of that so I remember. How I would categorize it is passive versus proactive is one way to say it. I think another way to say it is human capital, our time, versus our money, which sometimes if we're starting something for the first time, we don't have a track record, or we can't really track return on investment yet. So if there's a way that we can spend our time instead, that might be better, because let's say, I don't know what the experience level in this room is, but if we're starting something new, it's hard for me to justify, because I'm not confident in doing it yet, to spend as much money. So I'll spend as much time until I get comfortable doing it and I can have some sort of track record of tracking to start deciding to fund, let's say, a part of that avenue of lead gen. So we'll definitely talk about that. So proactive versus passive lead gen. And the answer is yes, we do a lot of that. So when you think door knocking, you think the activity, it's always also backed up with marketing. whether it's USPS doing it, whether I hired a 16-year-old person that's helping me door to door, whether I give them obviously expectation in terms of how many doors they should be canvassing per hour, things like that. So we'll definitely talk about that. That's part of in line with the topic. So any other questions?
I'm Eric Jansen with Compass. I'm 2.5 years in. My question is,
You made it over to hump.
What's that?
The 18 months.
Yeah,
Attrition rate
yeah,
of
I
like
guess so.
86%. Good job.
Yeah. It's 2 years. Yeah. Actually, I think I got my license almost to the day today, 3 years ago, but didn't start for 2.5. Anyway, I'm curious about him. So
Yeah.
what I want to get into, yeah, what I want to heavily get into is video, social media, like the ROI that you can spend for, $1,000 or $2,000 on that. I feel is so much better than a direct mail campaign and that kind of thing.
Yeah. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, and so, yeah, like I don't know if you guys know Dino, but he just put a really good video out there, and I had messaged him this morning how he did it. And he's like, basically, he just took a cell phone camera, took a quick video about bridge loans, and then with Compass and stuff on the back end of it, he had his video guy tie it in. But it looks really nice, and I know he just sat there with his cell phone like that. So, so that's what I'm interested in.
If you don't mind me asking, what is your production in terms of volume? There's a reason why I'm asking.
Oh, last year I did 7 million.
7 million. So we run our business as a business, and I'll share a little bit about the story of having the salesperson hat on versus getting to the point where I'm thinking as a business owner. I might have to still do activities within my business, and I wear multiple hats. But at the end of the day, let's say from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I work in the business. Afterwards or in the weekend, I work on it. I think about it. How do I spend my money? How can I even more efficiently go about business? If you think about the 7 habits, PC versus production, right? How can I increase my production capacity? That's working on the business. Capacity is, or actual production is me being in the business, doing the lead gen activities, handling calls, going on appointments, all this stuff. So the reason why I asked that is based on your GCI and your volume, you probably should have in mind a percentage of it that's going to be allocated towards the lead gen / marketing. So for example, if I've been in business for now 8 years, this is my 9th year, and my production is 100-something mil, and let's say the GCI is $2-something million, I set aside around 10% towards marketing and lead gen. That's going to be encompassing my USPS flyers, my postcards, the things I do for my open house flyers, printouts, the events I host for the community or for my past clients, and also technically his salary and the cost to maintain consistent videos. Now I get it, a lot of people, they're going to hire people like Aerial Canvas or companies that are third party. There is a pro and con to that. For example, I can't have Aerial Canvas come out like this at a notice like very quickly. I probably have to give them like business day notice for them to send a person out. At the same time, they're gonna charge me a contract rate, right? I'm not saying that, and I'm totally transparent with my team, so I don't mind sharing. Hiring someone on salary, it gives me a lot more flexibility, and also he can always be thinking about it without diversifying. I have to help all these agents in this room. So at the same time, for me, of course, I pay employment taxes on top of the salary, so there's more costs. But if you look at it from a year's perspective about all the content that we're going to be shooting, it's well worth the value that the cost of, or the investment I'm making in salary. The way I think about it is any staff that I have, are they giving me 2 to 3 times return in terms of my GCI? So if I add a staff member, did our business grow? If it hasn't grown, then why hasn't it grown? Then I have to take a look at, is it something that I'm doing that I'm not giving clear direction, expectations, or is it, and it's always going to be a combination, or is it them not executing on or going above and beyond the minimum standard that we set for that role? So just to give you an idea, if it's 10%, if our GCI was $2.5 million, then my budget for marketing would be $250,000. Well within to hire, let's say, a full-time videographer and content editor.
So my question's more, obviously I just told you my production, so it's more like how would you go about if I took a small little video but then have Like, how much does that cost just to send it to somebody on a one-off type thing? Because I'm not going to obviously pay somebody
Exactly.
that much with where I'm at production right now.
I would say it relates back to the gentleman's question in the back, where it's human capital versus the money that I could spend. So a lot of, in the beginning, there's amazing videos and movies shot on an iPhone.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And all they use is what is that thing called?
The gimbal.
The gimbal, where it balances. So in the beginning, you're probably going to take a lot more of your time, which is fair, right? Because let's say we don't have the budget to spend on another human yet, or an employee W-2 or 1099. So it's more going to be your time, and then you're going to have to just calculate the value of your time.
Yeah.
So my whole talk and how we've been able to grow the team is going to be, how do I increase my dollar per hour? So in the beginning, as an individual agent, how many people are individual agents here? Maybe half the room. The thing that you should constantly be having in the back of your mind every day, at the end of the day, you should ask yourself is, how efficient was I with my time? I get it as an independent person or a team, you do everything, right? And we were all there. I was there too. But if you don't think about it, if you don't self-analyze what you're doing, you're never going to improve it. So the idea is every certain interval, let's say every day, you should take inventory of what should I do, what should I not do, start gathering a list of things that you shouldn't do. Eventually, if you're working really hard, you have a desire to succeed, you're, let's say, doing 14 million this year, it gets to a point where you will be able to justify to hire your first assistant, and that is absolutely the right person for your first hire.
Yeah.
So, but hopefully I answered your question. You're probably going to do a lot of videos on your own.
Yeah,
One-on,
100%.
Very personalized, sending a text, video.
Yeah.
I think those are very effective. Yeah. For now, I think it makes sense. Yeah.
We'll probably get into this, but I'm
Mhm.
curious, as a team leader, what you provide to your agents and
Mhm.
what they can
That's a great
expect when they
question.
join your team.
That's a great question. And I'll be fully transparent about that too. Team member benefits. Because Jenny's on our team. She's 30 under 30 and last year. And she respectively in the last 2 years averaged about 36 to 40 plus deals a year. So she's one of our top producers on the team. And you could also ask her as a team member because she might have a different perspective. But we'll definitely talk about that.
How many are on your team?
Including staff, we have 13, 8 agents including myself. Our staff members are a property manager, transaction coordinator,
Listing coordinator.
marketing manager, and now coming in. Which he has an amazing story. He learned English on his own. He actually left Iran a little over a month ago.
Wow.
It took him 13 flights to get to the United States.
Oh my God. We also have
And-
3 VAs in the Philippines.
Yeah, and we have 3 VAs supporting us in the Philippines. One's a caller, reaches out to our database to invite them to our events. Another one helps the transaction management side, which is a separate business. And then the other one is someone that transcribes my coaching calls, that does a lot of personal assistant things for me. As they transcribe and as we've gotten more, we're all about content now, right? So as we've done more of this stuff, my coaching call, she'll give me timestamps and she'll basically share with the rest of my staff that this disseminates the content on our social, the specific thing that was said. And then we're starting to categorize that a little bit more so that we can have a calendar of like months of things to release. Let's say if I go on vacation for a month, we would still have something that's ongoing and someone else is maintaining it. But those are great questions. I'll start with that, and then of course we'll do more Q&A at the end. Hopefully it's helpful. I think it's powerful to give you some perspective in terms of how we were able to grow, or how I started from myself to where we are today. I think a lot of the successful people that you see, it's hard for them to share the full story of how they were able to grow, or you might see someone and judge them by their cover, as they say, right? But you don't know exactly what it took, the effort, the time, the exact avenues of business growth that they went through to get to where they are. So I started in 2011. My first 4 years, I did 2 transactions, 7 transactions, 10 and 10. My maximum capacity as an individual agent was 10 transactions. I'm sure a lot of you in this room, probably could do more than me. As an individual,
contributor to a business. So my capacity wasn't that high, and I was very frustrated in the beginning of my career. Why was I frustrated? I knew what success looked like. The way I defined success at that time was if I could help 36, 48 families, be a great living. The reason why I got into real estate was because I saw that my time and effort, if I put in more, would result in a better bottom line. If I put more time and effort in a corporate job, I can't say for certain that I could determine how much more I could make, or I could determine if I would get a raise or, you know, progress in the ladder, corporate ladder. So as I became very frustrated, luckily I had good mentorship at that time, and I took a class called Career Visioning, and basically that class taught about the value of time. And how many people have read the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book here? And I share this all the time, as my people know. The whole book could be summarized into one sentence. It's how do I incrementally remove myself from the business based on the dollar per hour rate. And that's why when I mentioned earlier, it's all about taking a look at your day and seeing what's an efficient use of your time and seeing what's not, right? And you have to take inventory of it. And hopefully you're progressing in business so you can justify for your first hire, even though it might be something that's a little over budget when you make that first leap of faith. If you're in growth mode, you probably should be always a little bit above your budget anyways, because you're spending to get to a higher production or a bigger business. So in my 4th year, someone explained to me, hey Wilson, if you ran your business like a doctor's office, think about how much more efficient you would be. If you think about how your traditional agent runs their business, they're the receptionist, collecting payment, giving the clipboard, asking for information. They're the nurse that walks you into the doctor's office, takes your height, your weight, asks you the fluffy questions, seeing how you feel. And then you also are the doctor, you diagnose and you prescribe. And then you walk them out, and now you obviously go through that whole process. If you walked into your doctor's office and that doctor did everything for you, you probably would think that they're doing something wrong, that they couldn't afford their assistants or their nurses or their specialists, and that you don't feel comfortable, right? That's at least how I would feel. So if you visualize that for a real estate business, from one moment you're having a high value conversation with the client, they're talking about their needs, they're moving somewhere else, they're taking care of mom needs their help right away, they have to sell, and all of a sudden you go back to your office and you do paperwork. You go from hundreds, if not thousands of dollars an hour to $15 an hour when you go back to the office. So how you should think about that is there's certain things that you delegate as you progress in your business. And if you can't hire someone full-time, hire someone part-time. If you can't hire someone part-time, give them a contract basis. You can dedicate 5 hours, you can manage something for me. You don't want to maintain your own transactions, hire a TC for $550, for example, right? So my 4th year, I learned that process. At that time, I was doing $7 million in volume. And I hired my first assistant. She was over 40% of my GCI, but I took that leap of faith because I valued my time. And because she freed up my time, I was able to, and I needed to make sure I had the desire to do more work. That's higher value. What's more work with higher value? One of the best ways that was explained to me is it's a triangle. In the beginning of your career, you're lead gen. And of course, we're trained to lead gen for listings. And as we lead gen for listings, we'll stumble upon buyers. And as we stumble upon buyers, then we have a lot of paperwork, a lot of transaction management, a lot of listing management. The first thing you delegate is the management. The next thing you delegate is the buyers. The next thing you delegate is the listings. And the last thing, if you delegate it, is the lead gen. So it starts and finishes with lead gen. And that's why today's topic is all about lead gen. So it got to the point where I delegated all the ops, but I focused on the sales. Sales encompass lead generation, lead follow-up, negotiations, contracts, and conversations with clients.
my first year, we hired an assistant, and halfway through, we hired a buyer's agent. The second year, we hired more buyer's agents. We hired a second assistant, and we just started to diversify our people's job duties. And as we diversified people's job duties, people became specialists. As people become specialists, buyer's agents become so focused on helping buyers that that's all, they get so good at that conversation that they could have a higher capacity in helping more buyers. That the escrow manager could have a higher capacity in helping and maintaining escrows. So that's basically what happened. Our escrow manager started her own business. I'm a partner with her, so we're on track to help over 200 plus transactions this year. Of course, half of it being our team, probably more as we continue to grow ourselves. We also started, and that was last year. Last year we also started at property management. I hired my sister, she was an attorney. She used to go to and from San Rafael, and it was a win-win because she needed to be closer to family to take care of my parents. So she works closer to home now, and she also is in business for herself. And we have over 40 doors right now. And also it's maintaining our sales business. So people might ask, what do I do nowadays? I'll tell you on both sides of the transaction. One, in the last 36 months, I represented 2 buyers. These 2 buyers, I literally showed one property and I put in a contract. That's the only reason I represented them. If they took a little bit more time, with that in mind, I gave it to my agents. Whoever showed up, whoever lead gen, whoever brought value to the business is the person that gets the leads that I generate that I'm not gonna serve. Which, on our team, Jenny's one of those people. So, and it's not saying that it's lower wage, so I need to delegate it. I'm fully transparent, and Jenny knows this too. If there's anything I want for our team is, I should be the example, I should be the ceiling to the business where they could see their opportunity. Where they could see that if Wilson is spending and utilizing his time at X amount of dollars per hour at a high efficiency, I want to get there too. How do I get there? Wilson's building a team of staff, and that's why it's so important to hire that first assistant first, because the value is, what's your dollar per hour? If I hire, let's say a lot of people will naturally progress to, oh, I'm so busy, I need to hire a buyer's agent. And the value that you provide as a team leader to a buyer's agent as a first hire is leads. Now, what if lead flow fluctuates? Then his or her income will fluctuate too. That is one value pillar, but it shouldn't be the primary. The primary is, how can I save Jenny more time so she could do more business, so she could spend more time talking to people, building relationships, signing contracts, and negotiating. If there's anything else she's doing, she probably shouldn't be doing it. So building that structure and that system so that people could delegate everything. So that's the buyers. On the listing side, I booked the appointment, handled the up call, I send the calendar invite. What's your name? Allie. Let's say Allie's my assistant. Allie gets a notification. Let's say it's tomorrow on Friday. By Friday morning, I show up to the office, I grab the presentation, Allie prepped it for me, and I go on my appointment. Let's say I sign it Friday. I bring it back, I give it to Allie. Allie takes it all the way from inception of the contract, hitting the market. She organizes which agents host the open house. A lot of times when we sign listings, I see it one time, at the time that I sign it, and I don't see it again. The only time I show up for that relationship again, of course, is occasional calls, if I get the call from the seller, but I trust that Allie is maintaining that relationship. Allie at a high level knows everything that's happening, all the vendors going through, the whole process, you set it up, right? And you're the point of contact until it comes to negotiation. That's when I step in again. Once we ratify a contract, James is my escrow officer. I hand it off to James. The next time I talk to him, weekly I might give him updates, but James does a hell of a better job than I do because he's maintaining the file. The last call I make is, Jenny, congratulations. I'm so happy you worked with us. We've selling the home. And can you give me some feedback about our team, blah, blah, blah. So think about the time that I spent on the listing and the time that I spent on the buyer. Very little. My dollar per hour is very high if I'm just doing the negotiation and signing the agreement. Now, what do I spend my time doing then? Or what should I be doing? That is correct. Now, lead gen in our business, there's a lot of things you could do, right? So I love the creativity.
we can build our niches in many different ways. There's so many agents, but we all could have our fair share of business as long as we spend our time and our effort. Now the question is the way that you're lead genning a proven method? And if it's not, how are you tracking if you could progress and see success? Now, as we know in the real estate industry, there's a lot of delayed gratification. Just because we do something today, it doesn't mean that something's gonna happen. So how are we tracking every day as a win, right? How do you quantify if today I won, or this week I won, or this month I won? If you think about it, in a year's time, it's very easy to see I had X amount of deals or families helped, and I can work myself backwards to see where I sourced it, how long it took to get to the point where they signed an agreement, and you can start reverse engineering how you got your business. But I assume most of us, just like when I was new, I didn't have a consistent source of business. I didn't know which lead gen method I wanted to or needed to pursue or I would be best suited for, and I needed to try everything. But when we have try everything, we have the squirrel, right? We would become squirrels. We try this, it doesn't work. We try this, it doesn't work. We try this, it doesn't work. When are we going to stick to the one thing? Is there something that's proven? Can we give a little bit of blind faith to follow through on things that we know works, even though it makes us feel uncomfortable and it's not something that we're used to do? That's the key to success. From day one of my career to more so after 4 years of being in business and being more purposeful, I figured that I could not drop the ball on lead gen, whether I was spending money or spending my own time. If you look at my Map My Walk, which is an Under Armour app, you can still see to this day, I've probably been out there over 20, 25 times in my neighborhood, waving at people, shaking hands, giving them flyers, inviting them to events, talking about recent solds. I still do that. That's the best use of my time. Because outside of me signing agreements and meeting people and negotiating, that's all that I have to do. Here's how I think about it. I am a dealer of relationships as a team lead. My agents maintain the relationships. I need to be quick about building relationships. Once I build it, it goes into the database, marketing manager maintains it, my VA calls them to invite them to events. As they become lower hanging fruit, they self-identify, I need to buy, I need to sell. My agents will maintain that relationship and carry them through close, and they earn their fair share. So what I do nowadays is I need to put my name out there, the brand of the business. I need to build a reputation, right? A good one. I need to build relationships with agents, partially why I'm here today. Hopefully I can add value to your lives. And eventually, the more awareness there is just when people think real estate, when people think about our area, hopefully they think about me. They won't always. I won't get 100% of the market share. I'll be okay with that. But if I could get 10, 15, 20%, I'm pretty happy, right? That's pretty dominant if you get 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 5 listings for a business. So hopefully that's helpful, gives you some perspective. Now I will cover the questions. Proactive, any questions, feedback before I jump in? Yes.
You mentioned you being the broker of relationships. So I'm kind of curious about how you are able to provide, or how you focus on providing service and
Yes.
also maintaining a relationship. And if you are passing off and delegating at different times during the transaction, how are you ensuring that that relationship stands when your name ultimately is attached to that
That's a
transaction?
great question. So, do you ever get this funny feeling that, let's say you're hanging out with a friend and they say something and you want to cringe? Sure, right? All the time. So, why do we cringe? Why do we react the way when we hear something that makes us react that way? And I'm answering it the long way so you can kind of see my thought process. There's certain people we want to spend time with and certain people we don't. And typically the people we want to spend time with is a match for our values, is a match for our work ethic, is a match for our standards and how we want to perform. So when you start thinking about team building, or let's say you're an individual contributor right now, the thing that you want to think about is long-term vision. This is what the goal looks like, how my business will look like. Very often, that goal involves more than just you. If it involves more than just you, you have to start thinking about what role do they play? They might have a specific set of duties that they have in your job, but it's my job to articulate, why am I cringing when you said something like that? Basically what I'm saying is, you have a set of values that you operate by. Hopefully you also have a set of standards that you operate by, and they're higher level than your average agent. If it is, articulate it, write it down on paper, and when you look for that person you hire, it's not what the resume says, but it's how they respond to you, how they respond to the first email. Are they detailed? What behavioral style are they? You're making observations, because if you get in a business with these people, they're basically getting in a relationship with you. Do you feel comfortable with this relationship, right? So whether it's a staff member or an agent. So one of my mentors, Ben Kenny, as you guys know, he says, love and results. I have to love the person, and the person has to get results in my life. If any one of those is lacking, then obviously I'm going to have resentment, and it's going to build. We're going to blow up, right? Ideally not. Hopefully you have conversations sooner than that happens. We're all humans, right? We say we get really busy, so sometimes we don't have time to slow down and have a conversation, or maybe the conversation's hard and we've never had that type of conversation before, so we want to avoid that. But as hopefully that answers your question. As long as you identify your values as you recruit the person to join your team, skills is something that you can train on, value is something that you can't. Personality is something that you can't change. These people are the way they are. So hopefully you can have a lot of candidates, and you're going to really be able to identify which one's going to be the best fit for the role. It's still going to be, people are human, and there's relationships at play. There's just going to be hurdles. But if you want to make it work, you'll find a way, or mutually, you'll see that both people are giving an effort to make it happen. So hopefully that answers your question. I have a lot of trust in my people. They've earned it. Everything is earned, it's not given, but it's slowly delegating, slowly giving more, and slowly trusting, and slowly building that. And it takes time. I've had relationships that haven't worked, just like family, just like dating, all that, right? So it's just a matter of finding the right fit. And yeah. You had a question?
What is your current market share? You said you'd be happy with.
In the whole city, we have a little over 7%. So in Westboro, which was my first farm, we have about 20%. So 20% is solid. If you have 20%. So basically, if there's 50 sides every year, 20% of it we are involved in. Yeah. So that alone is enough for people in the neighborhood to say, wow, you're everywhere, or wow, this is your neighborhood. Or telling other agents, yeah, I told them, this is Wilson's neighborhood. So, anyways, yes, sorry.
I have a question. So when you first started, when you were 23, how do you get over the objections that people think you're too young? Like, I don't want this young kid out of college to help me buy a house and sell a house.
Yeah, that's definitely something I had to overcome, and I think the evidence in building the confidence and also overcoming all these objections similar to this one is being very proactive. If you have a lot of experiences, then you're going to have a lot more to share, right? And you could be more empathetic with people. So I just did as much as I could. I cold called a lot. I used Mojo. I serial dialed or circle dialed, right? And I just gone through a lot of repetition where it's a little more automatic. It gets to a point where it's automatic, your response. And then it gets to a point where you have to look at your automatic responses and how can I improve on that. So for example, more often in the beginning of my career, people ask me that question because I looked really young and I was able to give them a lot of detail and information. So it overall became a good thing that they questioned how old I was. So if people ask you that, it's more often people won't ask you that. You're just thinking that people are thinking that. Ed Milet is one of the podcasts I listen to, and I love the guy. And he basically says, people are not thinking about you and observing you. You've heard this before, probably. People are thinking about what you're thinking about them.
So true.
So with that in mind, As long as you know the purpose of what you're doing, whether it's door knocking, open house, you know where to take that business conversation. You've gone through that conversation so many times and you've been purposeful. Now mix it up and be human. You know, a lot of times the value of you as an agent is not your knowledge, it's not your experience, not your track record, but it's you being present for that conversation. You listening to the answers that they give you, you asking the good questions that no other agents want to ask. You caring for that conversation, even if it's 5 minutes, that's going to be super memorable for that client. Maybe 3 months later, you didn't get the contact information at the open house, they'll call you. Hey, your name? Joyce?
Yeah.
Joyce, we met at blah 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 open house. I don't know if you remember me, but we decided to part ways with our agent, and we thought you were very pleasant to speak with at the open house, and we're wondering if you would be open to working with us. Happens. Just show up and be yourself. Hopefully that
Yeah,
helps.
no, that helps.
So proactive versus reactive. There's a primary goal for our farm. And whatever that geographic location is, or whether it's a group that you're involved in, let's say SFAR. Is that what you guys say?
Freestyle now.
Okay, SFAR. And the goal is some predetermined frequency that you will be present, that you will drop something off, that they will receive something from you. So in our farm, for example, the frequency is once a month people get something from me. Whether I personally drop it off, whether it's USPS helping me, whether it's a kid, or whether something happens, we have an event and the people that are invited, we talk about that event. So with that primary goal, you can only go more consistent. So basically this, I'm starting a farm today, I have 1,000 doors, I have to touch it once a month, every single door. If I don't, I'm failing my farm. If I do it more frequently, that's a thumbs up. But minimum, once a month. So with that in mind, you probably could spend a little bit more time before you spend a little bit more money. Now that let's say you've gone a couple listings, now you can spend more money, you should still be the face in that neighborhood, maybe in a lesser frequency. So be out there. So we do both. In our farm, I mail once a month, and then I invite people as well, personally. I'm still out there. The best times is late afternoons when people are off school, off work, on weekdays, weekends, in the morning, Saturdays, when they don't have to look to work on Sunday, when they don't have church that morning as well. I go out there and I just have conversations. My conversations are very brief. It's, hey, it's Wilson, neighborhood ambassador, how's everything going? Great, well here's an invitation I wanted to invite you to, blah, blah, or here's an open house we have. Do you happen to know of anyone, or do you think you'll be able to join? Great, well here's the flyer. If I don't have your contact information, then I'll say, hey, I want to make sure that you get our future invitations to. What's a good email for you? Is it Gmail or Yahoo? That's the extent of my conversation. Unless they want to talk to me more, I'll talk to them. If they don't want to talk to me, exit gracefully and say, hey, I appreciate your time. It sounds like this is not the best time for you. I'll catch you next time. You'll probably see me in the neighborhood. Have a great day. That face-to-face is very memorable. That's why I do it. I get it, there's a lot of condos here. You'll just have to strategize in a different way if you work a farm that's condos.
I have a
Yep.
question. As far as events, so open houses, but what are the other events that you're hosting and inviting?
2 movie days a year, 2 picnics. One's a Easter, one's a fall picnic. Educational events, we have a home buying class today in Millbrae. If you guys want to join, more than welcome to join. We also host ADU class with the local architect, so that person talks specifically about how to add value to your home. We also invite the San Mateo County Office of Sustainability, which promotes ADUs. So I'm sure someone in San Francisco local government, there's an agency for that too. You can invite them to speak. I don't know. Get creative.
We have happy hours as well.
Yep, happy hours are something that we get overall for free because we feature people in our marketing, and in return they don't give us money, but they give us event space or they give us free beer. So it's always creating win-win relationships, whether it's with a client, whether it's with a business owner. The idea that you have for your whole team is every day
every single person on the team, salespeople, have a goal of X amount of hours to lead gen and X amount of contacts to make. And they could be, we're flexible on the way that you create it, whether it's going and talking to a local mom and pop restaurant, or it's in the farm knocking on a door, talking about an upcoming listing. So,
One more question.
Yep.
Sorry. Do you send that to, so people that your agents are meeting at open houses or clients that come from different sources other than your farm? Are you inviting those people to all these events, or just the farm? Do you have separate events for your farm versus?
so how it began, so I'll give you some details to work with so you can think about it. My farm started as a 1,000 house farm, and now it's become 2,500. Agents on our team have their own respective farms, primarily in the same city. When I started hosting picnics, I was obviously only inviting people in my farm because that was to the extent of my reach.
Yeah.
As my reach has gotten bigger, then we've said one picnic is not enough for the year, we do two. Each picnic we might have a bigger capacity, or we invite them until capacity. So first come, first serve in registration. So if you have high value clients or whatever it is on the team and you want them to see you or see them at the event, then you better get them on their list. So at least it's within capacity. And it's just grown from there. The idea is the events might scale as well. So instead of one small movie theater for 105 people, now last time we booked a movie theater was 295 plus a 105. So now you might have the question of how much am I spending? We want to just maintain the primary goal of what's the best ROI for my 10% of my marketing budget. And face-to-face events are such high value that we do it. We don't see it. The immediate ROI where someone literally walks up to the event and say, I want to buy, I want to sell. We don't expect that.
Yeah.
But then we have an expectation that it becomes memorable for them. We dress up for our movies. Whether I was Mr. Incredible, someone was Mrs. Incredible, and we take pictures at our backdrop. We could be a little bit more purposeful about tagging, about sharing the photos, but the idea is the kids are having fun at the movie, at the picnic, the parents are happy, they don't have to worry about it. The kids will talk about when's the next one, and so forth. So, yeah.
How did you decide the farm you wanted to market to, and why did you end up landing on door knocking as the most effective way?
Touched upon it briefly in the beginning. I saw that there was no dominant agent. I didn't live there. I didn't go to school there. I still don't live there. I have no affiliation with the city, but I created a presence there, and now I'm like the real estate agent in that city. So it was just a purposeful business decision, all about making sure that my barrier to entry to help families was a little bit less of an uphill climb. Now, don't take it the wrong way. I know this is recorded, so don't take it the wrong way. It doesn't mean that I don't care about people that live in Burlingame or Millbrae or San Francisco, but as a business person with my business hat on, I needed to be strategic with my time and my money. So I needed to see the results. I still love helping people wherever they are, but the bread and butter of the people that we help are in the city that we serve, and that was a purposeful decision. So one of the big things that you guys could think about is you have a farm in mind that you want to service. The only way to know if it's a really good farm is to add 4 more farms to compare it and see which one really is the best, whether it's market share, turnover, owner occupancy, how many rentals there are, how many doors there are they knockable, on average do they have gates, are most of them in complexes that have CC&R restrictions on knocking. Those are just things that would come to mind to think about. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yep.
Sorry. With door knocking, so I heard it was a friend that was in a different industry, but they said that 60% of their sales came from people that had the do not disturb on the door. I'm wondering if
Yes.
you guys have seen something similar.
Yes, I'll share 2 stories.
Okay.
One of them is our agent Hassan. He knocks Terra Bay in South San Francisco, and he's very a respectful person.
Yeah.
So when he saw that there was a no solicitation sign, he always left something there instead of knocked on it, right? But what we come to realize after a recent listing presentation, it was put on by the previous owner. It was not the current owner.
Oh.
So it kind of gave us insight, like it's more of obviously a defensive mechanism, and how another trainer mentioned it to me was, you might have heard this before, is the people that put up something like that are typically the easier ones to convey information, to sell to be more assertive with.
Yeah.
That's why they need that defensive mechanism there.
So they're easier to
Oh, 'cause
consult.
to like self and self combined.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're easier, and that's their default.
No
You knocked on my
self-control.
door, I have no solicitation. It's like, hey, I completely get it. I just wanted to make sure that we're here and we invited you to this. Oh, okay, thank you. So, but it's an even playing field. Here's another way to think about it as a business owner, as a person that's going to door knock the farm. Number one, the barrier to entry for real estate is really easy. But how many people are willing to go out there and knock on doors? And how many people are willing to knock on doors with the no solicitation? Your competition is not doing it. If they're not doing it and you do it, you have a leg up in getting that business. Here's how I think about it. Another way to look at it is, if a person walks in your open house and they're super defensive, I bet you they're super defensive at every open house that they walk into. So if you are the person that's the pivotal piece in getting that client, you clearly have earned it, and likely other people will have the same experience of having a hard time earning that client. So that's why in that way you should think about gaining that client is even more valuable, because the person that walks in and gives you all their information probably did that for every open house that they walked into. So, yeah.
And does your team have like a, this is what we're gonna say every time, or do you guys kind of have a game plan when you go out to door knock and it changes?
Great question. The answer is yes, we do. We have a good rule of thumb and a standard of how we should show up for an open house or a door knock. How we enforce it, we don't really enforce it, but we practice it. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Fridays, we start our days at 8:30 as a group. We have our huddle, and we talk about our wins, our gratefuls, our gratitude, and then we typically role play. Unless I get distracted and I like to talk about something sometimes. But the idea of meeting in the beginning every day, almost every day, every working day, is we start off together, stronger, so by the time you get an up call at 9:30 a.m., we're ready for it, right? Imagine if you don't meet and you haven't had any conversations, you just grab your cup of coffee at the coffee shop, it's really loud, you get an up call at 9:30, you're not going to be as prepared as if you showed up at 8:30, we did some role play, we talked about our wins, we talked about our struggles together as a group, you're already focused your mind. So that's part of why we do it. And when we have, let's say, 6 of us are hosting open houses this weekend, then we're going to more purposefully say, well, 6 of us are going to be at open houses, why don't we practice open houses today? One exercise that we do as well is whatever's on your mind, sometimes it's hard for us to say like, oh, I struggle with this. So we use Post-it notes. So for example, in this room, for sometimes YPN, you can pass out a Post-it note. People could write down an objection, or people can write down a limiting belief or a thought, and wrap it up, and people randomly pick it up. And then we go in order of, okay, so the one I have is, why should I use you versus Redfin? The one I have is, why should I work with you versus a neighborhood expert? And then you could role play it together as a group. That's what we do in the beginning.
Awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
When did you decide that you needed a coach?
When I started building my team, you know, in my first 4 years, I was a little bit in my head and disengaged and relying on a brokerage. You know, how I would say it is, and it's related to hiring a coach or having a mentor or asking for help, is going back to 7 habits. If you know, there's 7 habits, obviously, but the 7 habits are categorized into 3 phases. First phase is dependence. We grew up as needing our parents, as needing our peers, as needing someone to fend for us as a teen, as a young adult, right? And it gets to the point where we say, I don't need that anymore. I could grow up, go to college, live on my own, fight for myself, make my income. I'm an independent person. And that's the second part, right? Most people might not get out of the first or the second if they're unaware of it. A lot of people, they end up being very independent, and that's what they perceive as the top of the mountain. However, if you look at the last final habits, it's interdependence. It's saying that win-win relationships is much better than doing it alone, and I can get much further than if I had help, if it was a right type of relationship.
where I could build trust, where people won't manipulate or I won't manipulate other people, right? So to answer your question, I started getting a coach when I realized that my goal, my future goal of wanting to have a bigger business, to give me the freedom and flexibility to help other people in my business, to help more families, because I believe I am the best person in the areas that I serve, to help these people, that I needed more support. Whether it came from an admin, an agent on my team, or a coach, or having a mentor, more mentors in my life. So I hired my first coach in real estate when I started building a team. So you can imagine I was really over budget. Because over 40% was the staff, and now I'm spending $1,000 a month on a coach. But it was worth it because it gave me different perspective. You know, ideally that coach or that mentor that you're looking for has done something that you want to do, and they're going to help you shortcut to what it is that you want. So I don't think there's ever a wrong time. So it's just a matter of finding the right one. And sometimes you still have to take a leap of faith because you've never had an experience with that person, and be quick enough to tell them, and they won't be offended, right? Because they want to help. If they're not help, then they're basically cheating you, right? Getting your money and not providing value. You tell them that, hey, this is not working. This is why it's not working. I believe my relationship with you is a 6 out of 10. It would be a 7 if. It would be an 8, 9, 10 if. And then see if they could help you. If not, then sunset. High five. Maybe try something else. Yeah.
So you're big on learning in general, and I know you listen to a lot of podcasts and read a lot of books. What are 2 or 3 books or podcasts that you'd suggest for us?
You heard 7 Habits. I always revisit that book. Honestly, I get it. When I first read that book as a young adult, it was so dry and so boring.
Stephen Covey's.
Yes. But what I've come to appreciate about that book is it's so dense with information. A couple pages could give you some amazing insight, right? So 7 Habits for sure. I take a lot out of that. Millionaire Real Estate Agent, because that's basically a blueprint. That's a fine.
What is it?
Millionaire Real Estate
I
Agent.
don't know yet.
Gary Keller. I love Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. The Road Less Stupid is a really good read if you haven't read it before. It talks about tracking numbers. People do stupid things, especially business owners.
This book has a lot of great questions too. And you've heard Wilson walk through like when he decided to build a team or when he decided to leverage certain things out. This book is all about thinking time, putting away your phone and your computer and saying, okay, well, what is it that my clients are expecting from me that I'm not doing? And just sitting there for an hour thinking of that, you're going to come up with some experiences or ideas.
So one of the biggest things I got from this book was obviously tracking is important so you know where you're going, but the best answers that you're going to get comes from the 1/3 of the 1/3 of the questions that you ask. Did you get to that part yet? So basically, let's say I am coming up with questions I'll ask in an interview. I'm going to write down, I'm going to get to 8, 9, and 10, and that's when I start struggling about what else could I ask. And that 1/3 of the next questions that you come up with is usually where you're going to find your best questions or your best thoughts. So basically what it suggests is you will come up with very easy questions. Those might be great, but as you start challenging yourself to do a little bit more and a little bit more, it's going to get to a point where you're going to find the best ones because you're challenging yourself to come up with those. So, and that's related to a podcast. My favorite is Ed Mylett.
Can you say that name again?
Ed Mylett, EDMYLETT. And he was a World Financial Group guy. And if you check out his interviews and videos, he has some amazing ones on there. Let me try to relate to this. Oh, Thinking Time. He has, if you could revisit some of his old ones, where it's just him talking to the podcast or the camera, those are the best ones. Because his thoughts are so good. For example, he talks about the basis of thinking is asking and answering questions to yourself. Now, the level of thinking that you will have, the intellect, the answers that you'll find from yourself, depend on the level and the quality of questions that you ask yourself. And also, if you think about it, if all of us are interviewing for the listing consult today, the person that asked the best questions to uncover her goals, her needs, what she cares about, her desires, is the one that's going to win. Without even offering knowledge, experience, expertise, why you should work with me, right? I have to show you that I care for you first, and I care for you because I'm going to ask you questions that no one else has asked you. It's kind of like, but yes. So yeah, Ed Milet's a great podcast.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's one that comes to mind. So
Cool. Well, I want to be mindful of your guys'
Yep.
times. It is 10:02. Are there any other questions for Wilson?
Are you incorporated or did you set up an LLC for your business?
great question. Yes, I am a S corp. For multiple reasons, when it was the best option. Debated about changing into C corp. My accountant said that I'm not at the financial, income yet to see the benefits of being in a C corp.
He said go sell another houses.
Yeah. So, but yes, I am, and our transaction management company is a separate LLC, and then our property management is a corporation, S corp.
And did you incorporate in, right when you got a team, or was that later on?
I started using it, so luckily I had a different business in my younger life, and I just had that S corp available to use, and I transitioned it to real estate in time. So, but yes, when I started my team was when I used, expense tracking, having a separate bank account versus my personal. As much as the personal one I used was specifically for real estate, but it's better for auditing purposes, potential for audit.
And as a team, how does that work? Are your team members under that same S corp?
So there's two categorizations. Obviously, there's the W-2 employees, and there's going to be the 1099 agents. Obviously, 1099, I don't get direct pay. It goes to the brokerage, and the brokerage disperses my 1099, and the salesperson is 1099. For the W-2, I pay through my company. Yeah.
And I have my personal LLC.
Yeah. For her own tax benefits and so forth. So, good question. You start thinking about these things as you start getting bigger, right? Whether it's lawsuits, whether it's auditing, whether it's tax savings, and yeah, it's important.
Cool.
When you go out door knocking, what do you put on the flyer that you find most effective?
Majority of the page is my face. It's always going to be something of value.
Yeah.
How can we define of value? Now I get it. Let's say there's 100 doors that receive my flyer. Not all 100 are going to say, wow, this thing is great. Most of them are going to say, screw this trash and toss this shit, right? But hopefully you always come from a contribution standpoint. You want to add value. So it might not fit every single person, the 100, but hopefully every single frequency there is something that they see value. What is value? We do sports calendars. Surprisingly, that gave me a good name recognition. You're the guy that sends calendars. Hey, thanks so much. I get that. It's events. It's market updates. Try to think of things that people are not doing. Right? Everyone says, oh, in your whole complex, the last 3 solds were this price. Do you want to sell? Is that valuable? Yeah. I mean, it is valuable. I mean, to a certain extent, right? But what else can you add of value, right? It's going to be, hey, we're hosting an event at your clubhouse. It's free. It's for all the residents to mingle. Come if you can.
Question?
Yep.
So, because when you're new and you don't have a budget to necessarily host events, would you tell them about events that are in the community?
Yes,
Okay.
that's great too. Community updates. Hey, did you hear that the Embarcadero is going to have that big homeless center?
Yeah.
Things like that. Do you know how that's going to affect your home value? Obviously, this is one of the biggest assets you have. I just wanted to bring awareness to the community value, right?
One of the biggest ones I had was like a community meeting for new construction that was happening in the city, and I just used that event, and then I got a bunch of calls from it. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, like how many, like, are there any DMR units, or like how many are for sale? Are they for sale? I'm like, I literally have no idea.
Yeah.
And
I have a tip for you, and I shared with my group class. in your respective farms, I challenge you today to run a Parks and Rec and to book a picnic spot. Whether it's 50, 25, whatever it is. Hopefully you're a resident, you get some good pricing on that picnic spot. It's not gonna cost that much money. Now you have a talking point, invite people and just say, hey, I'm throwing a picnic. Now the question is, I don't have much of a budget. Partner with a lender and have them pay for everything. Now you have a free event. You're gonna invite your neighbors, it's an easy conversation. One person shows up, 20 people show up, doesn't matter. You had a talking point, you gave value. Now make that a frequent thing, systemize that every year, every half year, whatever it is. So, what I've found in my career is every time I put a little bit more pressure on myself, I perform to it. So I continue to put more pressure, I put more responsibility on me, and it's worked. Now everyone's going to work a little bit differently, so you just have to figure out what your your progression will look like.
Cool. Well, what can you give more information? I'm actually throwing my first event around buyers, and so can you tell me more information about your one in Millbrae today?
Yes, we have a lender there.
Okay. Like what time and what, so probably.
6
Millbrae
to 8
Library.
p.m.
Oh, so it's tonight.
Yeah, tonight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think it'd be during the day, but I was like, oh.
Yeah.
So
So
would be perfect for me.
Mind adjusting. Everybody wants to.
yeah, shoot. Let me
Yeah.
let my staff know right now.
Yeah, bring your entrepreneurs might show up.
Yeah. Tips I would give you is think about when you have a one-on-one consultation with a buyer. How do you add value to that buyer? If you could add value to that one buyer, basically it's a presentation to multiple buyers, same value in a group setting. Talk about strategies, talk about wins, talk about stories of people you've helped or you've heard in the office. Because out there, a lot of people are hearing negative stories, like, oh, I had a horrible experience with so-and-so, or this whole process was so lengthy and so stressful. Talk about the positive things, talk about how you've been able to make a difference in the positive things, and walk them through the process. You know, if you, buyers, first time or experience, they always have the same question. How's the market? This is a good time to buy. Financing, what the process looks like, and needs and wants, and then probably some other questions that they have. Just cover those bases and it'll be good.
We're
And then
gonna do
field
a panel
questions.
style interview.
Oh, cool.
And do it that way, and then have like some wine afterwards.
Yeah. The wine is probably why people
We've
stay.
never needed
It's
task
awesome.
clients that can come and be, we had a
Oh yeah,
event with like,
giving them a bottle of wine to show up.
Or raffles too. and-
Yeah.
just share their stories.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it too is just direct messaging people to invite them. Because I know some colleagues have done that. They just put it on
Absolutely.
Facebook. It's like, if I saw an event on Facebook and I
Do-
don't know the person, it's still relationship business.
Yep.
You know?
Do everything, right? Post
Yeah.
it, and then now they see it, they kind of eliminate it, their friend
Yeah,
posted it, they
text
shared
message,
it,
all that,
and
yeah.
now they get a personal text or something.
Exactly.
It's all piled on to each other.
Yeah.
Value of a team, I think that was the last question, is going to be time back, it's going to be leads, it's going to be a safe place to express what you want to achieve, and hopefully the team could help you achieve it, whether it's business or personal. So it starts with asking yourself what you want and you helping yourself achieve it so you can be the evidence of success for the people that you potentially deal with. So, hopefully helpful.
Cool. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Was that a value, guys?
Thank you guys for being here. Feel free to reach out, follow me on Instagram or Facebook, add me as a friend.
Let's take a group picture.
Yes. So,
Can we take one sitting down already, right?
We have a couple sitting down. Cool. There you go.
yeah.
Should we do it with all these passports?